This is the Master Brewers Podcast, brought to you by the Master Brewers Association of the Americas, a volunteer organization dedicated to continually improving the products and processes of our membership since 1887.
Let's go!
Master Brewers brings you interviews with the industry's best and brightest in brewing science, technology, and operations.
Calm down, I'm moving too fast.
This Master Brewers podcast is proudly sponsored by Hopsteiner, a global leader in the hop industry focused on quality, sustainability, and innovation in new hop varieties and hop products. Contact our brewery sales team to provide you with the hop-related tools you need to craft your next great beer. For more information, visit hopsteiner.com.
Additional support provided by
Get to know Proximity Malt. We malt superior, European-style, low-protein varieties grown close to home in Delaware and Colorado. Domestically grown, precisely malted to style. With our team of seasoned experts and 2 brand-new malt houses, try what's really new in malt. Check us out at www.proximitymalt.com.
We've all seen the Western movie, and after the sheriff gets fired, nothing good happens. We figured we ought to hire the sheriff.
I was on my honeymoon, and Ken Grossman calls me on my honeymoon and says that I need to be part of this group.
This week on the show, we tell the story of an elite group of brewers working behind the scenes to improve hop quality in the United States. This episode originally aired in June of 2017. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode that you won't want to miss. Welcome to the Master Brewers Podcast. I'm your host, John Bryce. Today, I'm joined by John Mallett of Bell's and Tom Nielsen of Sierra Nevada. John and Tom, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So we're here today to talk about an organization known as the Hop Quality Group. John, how about giving us some background on the Hop Quality Group? How did it get started and who was involved?
Well, sure. So the Hop Quality Group really arose out of mutual concerns of some fairly hop-focused brewers. And, interestingly, we were at the Master Brewers annual convention. It was in Providence, Rhode Island back in, I think, 2010. And a group of us were just kind of sitting around, standing there, talking with beers in our hands about sort of what was happening in the hop world. And boy, somebody ought to do something. And there was an open room. We all walked in, and there were a few brewers involved. I think it was obviously Sierra and Bell's were there, Russian River, Odell, Boston Beer, New Belgium, New Glarus, Firestone Walker. And, the brewers from each of these groups would sort of said, we ought to do something. And that's how the organization got its start.
Very cool. So what was the first project that the Hop Quality Group took on?
Well, the first thing we wanted to do was to just kind of get word out to the growers and the merchants to talk about what our concerns were. And our concerns were that, at the time we had been unknowing beneficiaries of efforts of large brewers to be out there very directly interacting with the growers and merchants to talk about field sanitation, processing, just good practices. And with the changes that had occurred with the change in ownership in Anheuser-Busch, a lot of that team had been dismantled. And so, we've all seen the Western movie, and after the sheriff gets fired, nothing good happens. We figured we ought to hire the sheriff. So the first step we did was we went out to Yakima in Oregon and went and visited the various groups and just sort of said, here's our concerns. How do we best work together? And so the group of brewers went out there and talked to everybody. Initially we were met with some skepticism. What do you guys, what are your concerns? Maybe they thought we were there to try and talk about like a buying cooperative or something. And our intent always was, how do we assure that we're getting the best quality hops we can?
Very cool. And I guess, would it be safe to say that part of the group's mission is really to sort of inform growers as to what brewers do and don't want?
Absolutely. And I think it was also to recognize with the growers and the merchants the way that we as dry hopping brewers were using hops. Traditionally you think about hops being harvested from the field. They go into a kettle and they're boiled. And that's a little bit different than throwing them directly into a fermenter. There is no thermal treatment step that we're providing there. And so we want to make sure that we're getting clean hops. We also are very concerned about how do we get the best aromas possible. So in the past, growers maybe were focused on achieving very high alpha values. And for us, we're not, the beers that we're brewing aren't really relying on high alpha values. We're looking for excellence in aroma.
I've been out to Yakima and I've seen the Hop Quality Group signs on the farms there. A lot of those signs are geared toward GMPs or even have a HACCP-like message, as you sort of alluded to. Oftentimes, those signs are bilingual and they include statements such as, "Please remember hops are a food product." How much of the Hop Quality Group's objectives are related to food safety? And could you comment on how the Food Safety Modernization Act, whether or not that's had much of an impact?
I think it's had an impact because individual brewers, as we look through our supply chain and think about, GMP and supply chain, how do we address this? And part of that, the expectation of all of our customers is that, hey, the knowledgeable brewer is managing this. So if we are not actively out there doing that, then in many ways we're not doing our jobs. Obviously there's, with the increased interest in, FSMA and GMPs, this all reinforces the same message that we've been kind of at all along. I can't imagine that hops that were unclean are hops that I would want in my beer. And I think it just, like in a brewery, if you see a brewery that's messy, it makes me question the quality of the beer. I want to make sure that I work in a clean brewery that makes great beer, and I think that's aligned with the farming practices as well.
Another important piece to our early efforts was definitely FSMA related, and traceability was important. Some of our members were getting hops that weren't very well labeled. They didn't have a crop year included or a lot number, just basically variety. And part of our early message was definitely had a big traceability component to it.
Very good. Tom, during the 2013 Master Brewers Conference, you presented some important work on behalf of the Hop Quality Group. Your presentation was titled "The Effect of Kilning Air Temperature on Hop Essential Oil Content and Aroma." Could you give listeners the lowdown on that project? What exactly was studied and what did you find?
We studied the impact of air temperature as well as the kiln bed depth and the fan speed or the air speed going through that bed depth. So it was actually a 3-variable analysis. We looked at high temperatures versus low temperatures, crossed that to high bed depths and low and short bed depths, and then crossed it again to very, very fast air speeds and low air speeds. And we did that with 3 different hop varieties: Cascade, Simcoe, and Citra. Multi-year study. We learned a lot. We certainly learned certain things about crop variability year to year, but we also learned that a lot of growers were not drying their hops optimally. So it was a 3x3 factorial design. You had those 3 variables at two different parameters, and we learned a lot. I mean, we've certainly learned that fast air speeds were very good. Since putting that information out there, we've seen growers upgrade their fans to get the air speeds up a little bit higher. We've seen growers decrease their kilning temperatures to 130 Fahrenheit or below 125 in some cases. And we haven't seen too much activity in decreasing bed depths, but that's another variable. Certainly throughput becomes a component of this conversation. A lot of growers are at capacity and they can't really add a lot of time to their killing cycles, but some certainly could. And since 2013 through 2012, there's been a lot of new construction, and people have certainly taken the information produced in this study in designing their new systems. So some of the big things we've learned, our system in the U.S. is a single bed drying system. and the bottom third of that hotbed is typically over dried, and the top third is typically under dried. And these hops get mixed, homogenized, the moisture equilibrates, but still you've damaged the bottom hops quite a bit, which a lot of growers try to rectify by reintroducing moisture to the kilns. It really is a Band-Aid. Those aromas, those flavors are gone at that point in time. So we did have a lot of impact. Since that study came out, all the big merchants in Yakima have also called in the world's experts, the Germans, the people who design kilns, to give kind of big town hall educational seminars to all the growers. So that topic of conversation is really front and center to most all the growers, all the growers interested in growing hops for craft.
Coming up, the Hop Quality Group's role in public hop breeding and more. I'm John Bryce, and you're listening to the Master Brewers podcast from the Master Brewers Association of the Americas. Support for this podcast is brought to you by
ABS Commercial is a full-service brewery and parts outfitter. From our Raleigh headquarters to our Denver office, we proudly offer brew houses and fermenters from 3 barrels and up, yeast brinks, boilers, kegs, chillers, tri-clamp, and other stainless parts, all with the quickest delivery and lead times in the industry. Learn more at abs-commercial.com or call 877-BREW-ABS. ABS Commercial. We are brewers.
Additional support provided by
Bring the world to your brewhouse with BSG's diverse selection of ingredients and services. Our dedicated customer service team and industry experience provides you with the assistance you need every step of the way. Make BSG your supplier of choice with products essential to making great artisanal beverages so you can stay focused on your craft. Visit us at bsgcraftbrewing.com or contact us at 1-800-374-2739.
Here's what's coming up on the Master Brewers calendar. We're only a week away from the 2019 Master Brewers Conference. If you're joining us in Calgary, visit masterbrewerspodcast.com where you can find the full schedule for Master Brewers Live, an exciting new part of the conference. I hope to see you there. And immediately following the conference is the world-famous Master Brewers 2-week Brewing and Malting Science course in Madison, Wisconsin. Check out the full calendar of events at mbaa.com for more details or to find a district meeting near you. Now back to the show. Could you elaborate a little bit on the differences you observed between the hops kilned at 130 versus 150, I guess in terms of sensory as well as the analytics?
Well, we certainly noticed a drop-off in oil content for hops dried at higher temperatures, especially with larger bed depths and slower fan speeds. So that was one drastic end of that design, the spectrum of that design. Citra, for instance, if I remember correctly, the hop coming in had about 4.5% oil. The hops coming out of the kiln at the high temperature variables had about 0.5% less oil than at the lower temperature variables. So it was pretty significant. Recently, Boston Beer did some brewing trials with these hops. I think it was the Simcoe experiment we did the follow-up year, and didn't really see too much difference. However, this test was conducted in the kettle. They weren't dry hop tests.
Tom, tell us what else needs to happen to get to that point where hops are never overdried. How much more infrastructure needs to be overhauled to make that a reality?
Well, I think a lot of the investment has already happened. A lot of the U.S. growers have purchased, well, not a lot, maybe a handful, 5 or 6, have purchased the German-style kiln, which is a 3-level kiln that turns the hops over at each step of drying. That system also relies on rehydrating the hops at the end. So it really, what I think needs to happen is, the U.S. industry needs to slowly adopt the German drying system, the three-bed system that turns over in each phase, but also not overdry the hops in that step and rely on rehydrating the hops post-kilning. So I think we need to kind of adopt the best of the German system to some new concepts that we're putting in place to really create the best hops out there.
Okay. John, to what extent do you think these Pacific Northwest hop growers have received that message? What percentage of them understand just how big of an impact that kiln temperature and airflow has on the quality of the hops they produce? Or is there a lot more work to do to get Pacific Northwest growers on the same page to produce the best possible hops?
Well, I think that the Pacific Northwest brewers, I don't think I could lump them into one basket and speak about them, as a single entity, just like we couldn't do that with brewers. I think like brewers, there are companies that are very focused on, attempting to drive their practices to the best possible place. And that's very much the case with the growers as well. Some of the things that we have done that I think speak to this is that, we're certainly out there talking about what our priorities are, what some of the results we're seeing. And I think that's even reflected in selection. So when these brewers are out there making hop selection, that the growers who are doing stuff right, that their hops are being selected more. So it really relies a lot of this on the power of the marketplace. A second way that we've tried to do this is that we have every year we go. There's a group of us that will go to the hop growers annual convention, and at that convention we've instituted a contest which we call the Cascade Cup. And the Cascade Cup is a judged trophy. The judging is who is growing the best quality cascades. So we ask that the growers send in their best cuts to us when we judge them. A group of brewers get together, assess the hops like they would assess them during selection, and one of them is crowned with the Cascade Cup each year. And I think this has been very well received by the growers. They're interested in they're a competitive lot like brewers. They're interested in winning, and they're interested in best practices. So it's almost like so it takes a page out of the Great American Beer Festival or similar judged beer competitions. Very
cool. Tom started to get in. He started to talk about some of the methods of the European growers. I was going to ask if they had a better understanding of the impact of these kilning parameters. But I'm also curious if you guys think it's less of an issue there, since oftentimes the farms are a lot smaller and the processing operations are smaller in Europe. Could you comment on that? And also, has the Hop Quality Group done any work in Europe?
Yeah, so the Hop Quality Group as an organization has not done work directly in Europe, but I know, certainly, Tom, you've been over to Germany. I've been over to Germany visiting hop farms. Boston Beer, of course, is very active over in Germany. And we're really carrying the same message as individual brewers as the Hop Quality Group does. So when you go over there and you make a farm visit, take a look at the sanitation practices. I think it's very important to inform the growers that, how we're using the hops. These hops are going in as dry hops, and they are used differently. In terms of why the Germans are doing it differently, if you look at the cost structure of making a hop harvest, in the United States, the biggest cost is labor. And in Germany, the largest cost is energy. The systems that the Germans are using are actually more energy efficient, and that's what's driven a lot of it. I do think it is a superior system in terms of having ultimate control over the hop coming out.
To add on to the German hop question, they're really known for noble varieties that they typically don't refrigerate post harvest. Last year, I did a talk at a German hop convention where my number one thing, and I put my hop quality group hat on during this talk and had a nice audience of European hop industry people, was as they're developing new flavor varieties. As I think the Germans have really popularized or coined the term flavor hop more so than the Americans. But as they come out with things like Ariana and Mandarina Bavaria, they can't treat these hops like a Hersbrucker or a Tettnang and let them sit unrefrigerated after harvest for a number of days or weeks. I really made the point very strongly that these hops need to be refrigerated very quickly to preserve their flavor properties and for people to make flavorful IPAs with them. So that was that. As we're learning more about hops, as the industry develops and becomes more mature, and as people try to play in new areas or to innovate, we're definitely putting out the message that flavor is number one, and what you guys need to do, not only in the kiln but in storage, and for many brewers, or for the vast majority of brewers, in pelletization, what you need to do to preserve those flavors.
Okay. I was wondering if you guys could comment on sort of what the hop quality group is currently working on. Do you have any projects that are the current priority?
Sure. One of the things that we do every year is that we're interested in getting out there and interfacing directly with the growers to talk about, harvest best practices. And included among them is, just go and visit the ranches and, recognize the good work and the, considerable capital that these growers are putting in. So that's something that we're doing. One of the areas of interest for us is what we call non-traditional growing areas. So at this point, for example, Michigan, where I am, has a nascent hop industry that's actually quite appreciable in size. We're in Michigan, the growers there are about to surpass the production of New Zealand, which is, certainly something. As these new growers are coming on, we want to be there to support them and helping them to make the choices that are going to allow them to be successful at selling hops into craft.
I know the growth and membership of the Hop Quality Group has enabled the organization to make some important financial contributions. Could you comment on that growth and some of those contributions?
The Hop Quality Group at this point has, I believe, 27 brewery members. And the structure of it is that we basically all participate in grower visits. Participation is very important. And we also have a dues structure. And that dues structure, the monies for that go to a number of different projects. It could be printing signs, or it could be something like the hop breeding. When I think, Tom, do you want to talk about hop breeding for a minute?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we've grown from 13 members to 27 members, we've really increased our pool of funds to play with. And one of the things that was being neglected was public breeding in the U.S., particularly the kind of 70-year-old public hop breeding component of OSU and the USDA. And a couple of years ago, we decided that this was really the best place to put our money into and help revive the public breeding program at Oregon State University, which is actually organized and led by the USDA hop breeder, John Henning. So we've been making crosses every year, really putting together some interesting material and hope to reap the benefits with some interesting new hop varieties here in the next couple of years. And of course, these are public hops, just open for anybody to grow.
John, so I know Hop Growers of America is the main organization that represents the various hop growers in the Pacific Northwest and really across the entire U.S. now. I'm curious if you could comment on kind of some of the work they've done and what that relationship is like with the Hop Quality Group and the HGA.
Yeah, I think the HGA is a great organization. Ann George has really been a driving force there, and one of the items that they've been working on is harmonization of best practices. And I think she's done a tremendous service for the entire industry by developing a broad consortium, which includes, certainly representatives from the Hop Quality Group have been in there talking about, what's important, and to be able to drive to a single set of standards that growers can reach and communicate to brewers. I think it would be very difficult as a brewer for me to attempt to establish a set of standards that maybe are different than those of Sierra Nevada or of New Belgium or whoever else, and for the growers to try and meet them. So I think this harmonization effort that they've done really provides a huge service to the industry. We love working with them.
All right. Well, John, Tom, thanks for taking the time to chat about the Hop Quality Group with us today. I really look forward to seeing what's next. Take care, and I hope you guys both have a great day.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, John.
If you enjoyed today's interview with John and Tom, be sure to check out the air temperature drying study presented during the 2013 Master Brewers Conference. Conference proceedings are available for purchase in the Master Brewers bookstore, or you can find the abstract by typing Hop Quality Group into the industry's best search bar at mbaa.com. 130 years ago, Master Brewers was built on the concept of brewers helping each other out so we could all make the best possible beer. That's still true to this day, and it's where a lot of the camaraderie in this industry originated. Master Brewers' award-winning Ask the Brewmasters is the best place to go for troubleshooting, where you'll find the industry's only discussion forum that's moderated for technical accuracy by a team of experts. See what everyone else is talking about at community.mbaa.com. Check out the brand new Master Brewers Podcast website. You'll find guest profiles, information about upcoming live events, and more, all at masterbrewerspodcast.com. Are you enjoying the Master Brewers Podcast? Let me tell you about a simple way you can help us keep making more. Take a minute to thank our sponsors. There's no way we could produce this show without generous support from sponsors like Hopsteiner, ABS, Proximity Malt, and BSG. So please, let them know you heard their message on the Master Brewers Podcast and that you appreciate their support.